They say the odds are stacked against us as women, especially women of color, trying to thrive in the consulting world. But rather than wait for a seat at the table that may never come, what if we build our own tables? What if we channeled our talents into guiding each other towards the success we deserve? Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and I've walked the path from healthcare consultant to a mentor for women like you, ambitious, unstoppable, and ready to make waves in the consulting world. This podcast is your go-to spot for all things entrepreneurial consulting for us as women, especially women of color. Think of it as your weekly coffee date with a friend who's here to dish out real talk on building a solid business, elevating your thought leadership, and mastering that all-important mindset. And let's not forget, we're doing all of this while balancing day jobs, family life, and running teams. Yes, we can do it all. So if you're ready to dive into how you can grow a thriving consultancy or get strategies and insights that actually fit your busy lifestyle, then you're in the right place. Grab your coffee, tea, or hey, even a glass of wine. I won't judge. And let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and it has been a wild summer already. I can't believe that we are already at the end of June. Time has gone by so fast, and I don't know if you live in the South or other parts of the country or even out of the country, but where I am, which is in Georgia, we are not too far away from kids actually going back to school. So that's really crazy when you think about it. I feel like they just got out yesterday, but really they did get out in May. So time is marching ahead. And also, what that means is that for us, we are getting closer and closer to the midpoint of the year. It really roughly less than a week after this episode airs, which it should air the last week in June, you will be entering into July. So that means that we have 6 months in order to reach all of our goals by the time the year ends and we begin to move into 2025. So no pressure at all. I know, listen, I feel it, the pressure too sometimes, but I'm not saying this to create any type of artificial timeline because actually, this episode, I want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that we can consider as we move into the second half of the year. And it has nothing to do with finding more clients or making more money or launching another offer or starting another service and all of the things. It really does have to do with how we as women, especially women of color, can show up more boldly in our space. And I have been working on this really for a few years now, and I can tell you it has been a slow journey, mainly because there are so many beliefs, our mindset, thoughts, experiences that have caused us to be more conditioned to be more conservative, be afraid to take risk, and be more mindful of many of the situations that we may put ourselves in when we are being more outspoken and more bold in our space. So there's no surprise that this is actually a challenge. But I never really thought, if I'm honest with you, that it would take so much effort to peel back these layers. And I think I mentioned before that last year, and this is if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, and if you're new to the podcast, welcome in. I can update you. But last year, I talked a little bit about it being my year of bold. So I was focused heavily on following people that I felt were more bold in their space, reading books from women who I thought were just doing amazing, bold, daring things, and really challenging myself to push beyond the limits that I have become more comfortable with. And although I made progress and really a lot of progress during that time, every moment, every step that I make, every new level I get to, I recognize that part of what has held me back and caused me to grow more slowly than maybe I even desire is the fact that I have not been as bold as I could be. And so, I think that this is a conversation that we need to have because instead of sitting back and waiting for this magical moment where we're going to feel confident enough to show up in our space and be authentically who we are, we have to start forcing ourselves into this discomfort at least temporarily, so that we can get used to being who we truly are around the people that we are afraid are going to judge us. Because when you get down to it, a lot of what we fear really is the judgment that comes with it, right? It's the judgment as to the quality of work that we're going to put out. It's the judgment about whether or not we're professional or not, how someone is going to view us in terms of our level of intelligence or our knowledge and expertise. There's so many fears, oftentimes as women, and especially women of color, that we carry. And really, if we're honest with ourselves, these are things that are somewhat self inflicted because we don't have to carry this burden. But due to societal factors and other things that we have experienced in our lives, or even in the lives of our parents and our grandparents, we feel as if we need to represent a certain level of success, a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of conservatism in order to be taken seriously. And so, what I want to dive into today are just ways that we can think about breaking down this barrier. And this is coming from what I've learned over this past year and the things that I have been thinking through and really working on for myself. So, if you're interested in this conversation, that is what we're going to peel back the layers on today so that we can figure out exactly a very comfortable yet bold and daring way to move forward and really achieve the success that we truly deserve. Because in order to get to the higher levels that we desire, we're going to have to be extraordinary. We're going to have to be unique. We're going to have to stand out. And so, all of the effort we put into fitting in, we're going to have to push back against that. And we're going to push back against that today. A thriving consulting business is built on a solid business foundation and a consulting code that leads you toward your ideal business and your ideal lifestyle. And the great thing about this code is that it works for any type of consulting practice, whether you help clients with professional development, business management, grant writing, IT, or something entirely different. This consulting code is not rocket science and is not beyond your reach. And when you crack the code, it can jumpstart the growth of your solo consulting practice and is what you need to know to get started and land your first clients and nothing more. This is a step-by-step process I wish I had so many years ago. And that's why I wanted to share this with you and how you can do this too. So if you're interested in starting your consulting business and creating a desirable offer to generate leads for your offer and to make sales, then the consulting code is your solution. Visit www.excelatconsulting.com for more information. So, one of the first things I learned when following many of these bold women, like I said, I've been studying for the past year, really about a year and a half, is that one, they're all very observant. And this is something that I thought was really interesting because I didn't realize how often I was unaware of the environment around me. I don't mean noticing whether or not someone was in the room or entering or exiting, but I'm really talking about the details, the little things, the small moments that often I would just miss because I didn't find them to be significant. And what I noticed about these women is that they were keenly observant of their environment, so much so that they were able to pick up on the smallest details that most other people missed. And because they could observe those things, number one, they were able to draw connections and establish patterns. And those connections and those patterns gave them greater insight as to what may have been occurring. So when they decided to speak out or have a comment or provide insight on a topic or a certain issue, they were able to speak at greater depth because they were very observant as to what was occurring around them, whether it was the conversations that people were having, the reaction and the facial expressions that people were making, or maybe it was a dynamic that may even play out online or in some other format. They knew when something was resonating and they knew when something was not quite connecting with the masses. And so, because of that, they could really pinpoint the opportunity to be able to speak to their given point of view. And so, being mindful of this environment around them gave them an edge, whereas anyone else could make a comment about the situation and they are just shooting in the dark. Maybe it hits, maybe it doesn't. Typically, with these individuals, with these women, most of their commentary and their insight was very much on point. And it was on point because they had studied their environment. They knew what was resonating, whereas many of us are oblivious as to how people are receiving information and receiving cues that others are giving off. So, one of the first things is just being more observant. What are we not paying attention to? What are the cues that we are missing that are actually opportunities for us to speak out and to share more of our insights? That is a bold move, but then it's a bold move that is also an educated risk, right? So you're not just being loud for the sake of being loud, but you are, in essence, providing insight and sparking more conversation around something that you've already gauged that others have interest in. So the observant part of their personality and the commonality of that trait really did make a difference. It made a difference in terms of how engaging they were, how well they were able to connect with others, and really that their point of view tend to lean toward the majority, at least for their target audience, all because they observed what was around them. So, what I've been working on is just really trying to be more present in the moment, picking up on the slightest details when it comes to a conversation, the things that are said and not said, the facial expressions that I may have missed in the past, and then being able to share my insights and be more vulnerable, especially when I'm able to see that I have others that may share a similar sentiment. Because then it's a lot easier to really speak out. And sometimes we need that little edge or that little push in order to be more bold when that is new for us. So that's one of the common things, is just being more observant. Now, something else that I noticed is that many of these women studied their craft. And when I say study their craft, I don't mean just studied information in their industry or in their specialization, but every aspect of their craft, they took time to study it. They were able to pull information from people who may be practicing a particular skill set, but in a different field or a different industry. So it gives them a slightly different picture and a different angle as to how they can approach it. And because they study all of these people and these other influencers and experts who are maybe doing the same thing in a different industry, they are able to piece together a unique approach in their own space. Now, I've often played around with this a bit, especially once I noticed this pattern. And I started to really pay closer attention to some of the creatives that may have had consulting businesses, but been more so in the design space or some other aspect of creative entrepreneurship. And I thought that it was interesting how just having that slightly different view made things a lot easier for me when it came to being able to show up a little differently, at least in the online space, in terms of my marketing that I've been able to do over the last year. But I need to take that even further. And what I want to urge you to do is to think about people who may be doing something that's similar to you. So maybe they're a consultant, but in a completely different field and specialty. Or maybe they're working on the same types of projects as you do, but doing it for a different ideal target audience. So you want to find a way to really pull from those who have a different approach and a different way of viewing things. It's amazing how we all see things vastly different. And when we're able to really think about how we would approach a problem from someone else's perspective, it opens up so many new doors. And those new doors will allow us to do things that are really kind of out of the box and unique for our space. And so are they completely something new under the sun? No, they're not. Someone else may be doing it, but they're not doing it in your industry the way that you would do it. And so, because you can learn from others who are already mastering it, maybe in a different space, you're able to take that expertise and that knowledge and use it in your space and begin to adapt and modify and iterate it so that it really does mold into something that's quite beautiful. And I think that the more we can do this, the more it really does invite us to show up in a different way. Because now, instead of following the same patterns and the same routines that you may have been doing, similar to everyone else that may be in your field, you're now pulling from completely different part of the industry, a different industry altogether. And when you do that, you're going to shift your routine. You're going to change things up. It's going to be different. And that difference is going to be something that helps you to stand out more and to become bolder because it is not the norm. Anytime we go against the norm, it's a step in the right direction. We're moving in the right direction of becoming more bold and more present and more noticeable in our space. So the second thing is to really look at other industries, other experts who are outside the realm of the work that we do day to day, and look and seek out new ways of thinking about similar problems. So that's something that I noticed that these women have a phenomenal do a phenomenal job at. That they really do glean from other industries and think about how can I apply something that's so vastly different, maybe something that occurred in the e-commerce space or something that has happened with an influencer, or maybe something that has happened with some other type of, company, pharmaceutical company or whatever it may be. How can I take their experience, the things that they're trying that I do enjoy and that I find to be very creative and very innovative and very cutting edge. How do I take those things and then try to see if they work in my space? How can I apply that to my business? How can I show up in a similar way that is going to be completely new and cutting edge for my people? So that's one thing they do so well. And so this is something that I'm encouraging myself to do more and more of just really sometimes just scrolling through podcasts and YouTube and just finding other experts that are out there in completely different industries, maybe on a similar topic, and looking for ways that they are approaching the same problem. Because I guarantee you, it will give you a lot of insight as to ways that you can think differently and be more bold. Now, this next one is is was interesting to me because I think when we think about people who are bold, we assume that they are very extroverted. And for me, I am more of an introvert. And so when I think about being bold, it kind of gives me the heebie jeebies. I get all weirded out because I'm used to just liking being in the background a little bit. But what I did notice is that many of the women that I found to be very bold and assertive and outgoing and stand out in our industry, many of these women actually were very much introverted. And what allowed them to be more bold really is the fact that they relied heavily on their strengths. And, the more and more I studied, the more and more I looked, no matter what the industry may have been, if it was in retail or if it is in coaching or marketing or even consulting, many of these women that I'm talking about, many of them actually are very much introverted as well. They're not necessarily extroverts. There are one or two that, when I've listened to their interviews and their podcasts, I heard them mention being more extroverted, but the vast majority were very, very much introverted, very, very much homebodies. And what I thought was so smart is that they rely so heavily on their strengths and they lean so heavily into that the way that they built their business and the way that they were showing up honestly was a true reflection of who they are. So it wasn't necessarily that they were showing up boldly. It was bold because everyone else is trying to conform and kind of be like the crowd and be like the masses so we can fit in, right? They honestly are authentically themselves. And because they built their business around being authentically who they are, it made it easier for them to be bold, right? Because they're different. Because if we're really ourselves, because we are unique individuals, we would be different. But the problem is that we try to conform. I'm speaking for myself. Try to conform, try to fit in, try to be more professional. I'm an athleisure person, definitely on the weekend. But I've always felt very, very uncomfortable showing up online with my jogging pants and my leggings and my tennis shoes. I like to have a good tennis shoe game. All of those things don't necessarily align, I thought, with consulting. And so I pushed back on it. And the more and more we do that, the more and more we blend in, the more we appear like everybody else. And yes, that works for the corporate environment when we are trying to be part of a group. But in entrepreneurship, it's a little bit different. You are trying to stand out so that you can be noticed separate from the group as being different, as being better, right? So if you are trying to stand out, how are we continuing to try and fit in, right? They really do push against that. These women push against that. And so the one thing I was thinking about was how can I embrace as I move forward into this next half of the year, how can I embrace being more authentically who I am and not be so afraid of looking quote unquote not as professional, not being quote unquote conservative, not fitting the expectation of some of the individuals out there. Because, in all honesty, anyone that you attract being authentically you is meant for you to serve. You are selecting for the audience that you desire. And I think we forget that aspect. And this because there's so many things going on when you're running a business. And these are things that we don't necessarily pay close attention to always. But I want us to start thinking about how you can and how we can incorporate more of ourselves in our business. Because that, if we're able to do it successfully, is going to be a way to show up more boldly. Um, another thing that I observed about these women is that in every case, they share their story. Now, I am not good about sharing my story as often as I should, I must admit. I want to get better about doing that. Sometimes I just think for me, it's finding the right time to fit the stories in. So I'm actually actively working on doing that more often because I would tell anyone that is key to you being able to market and sell within your business. But what they do masterfully is they share their stories in a way that allows you to feel connected to them. And because they share their stories in a way and very vulnerably, the vulnerability adds this level of boldness that you perceive because anyone who is willing to share the difficult moments, whether it was being unemployed for a period of time, or if it was having children and being a single mother, or if it was going through a divorce, or if it was just having a fear around something related to work or just related to life in general, whatever that transformational story is, it makes a huge difference as to how they are perceived in terms of their boldness. Because anyone that's willing to share their story, to share it openly and to own up to it, to own it, to, not allow that to hold them back and to show others how that has helped them along the way, that is a next level boldness. It's not even the basics, like you're getting into next level boldness. So, that's another aspect of this is being able to share our stories, being able to share those things that are truly meaningful with others so that they are able to resonate with us and really see through our lens. They could do that so well. And I feel like the last thing that I noticed, and this is uh, something that is going to move from, kind of these internal changes or observations that I made, but get into more the external. They crafted their image. They created an image or a brand, I would say, for themselves that was recognizable, that was comfortable, and that was uniquely different. Whether it was wearing tennis shoes with a suit, or if it is wearing jeans with other, what was seemingly be more business attire up top and jewelry, or if it is someone who is just into eclectic finds, maybe picking up different items from a flea market or things that are not commonly found in the stores as accent pieces, or maybe the beautiful, bright, and noticeable glasses they may adorn. They each choose something that is very unique to them, their style, and their brand. And that is another level of boldness that really does, I feel like, help us to visually also see them that way. Because when you're looking at someone and you're thinking to yourself, they have captured the essence of who they are as an image. They know what they want to be perceived as. They know how they want someone else to look at them. And they have gone out of their way to ensure that every time you see them online or at a meeting or at a conference or really any other time that they are kind of in uniform, and not just by color, not just, it's not about wearing brand colors, but it really truly is about being very thoughtful about how you are dressing, how you are presenting yourself, and the image that you're portraying. So that's another aspect of this boldness. And when you put all of these things together, when you putting together everything from the aspect of telling the story, being more vulnerable, being able to really be observant and to come in and speak your mind and to capture people's attention by using those commonalities, having your brand image. When you put all of those things together, it really does help you to stand out. That's something that I have learned from observing and watching these bold, I would say, badass women that they are able to do. So, as I think about how I want to approach the next 6 months, I'm thinking about these things. I'm thinking about how I can lean into my business in a different way, how I can show up more boldly, how I can create a better brand image, how I can be more observant, how I can utilize the information that I'm gaining outside of my industry to spark more innovation and uniqueness within my industry. Those are the things that I think will be key to really taking everything to the next level. I really do. And I really hope that you think about these things too. How can you show up more boldly in your industry, in your space? Have any of these things resonated with you? Who are the women that you're seeing online or, at conferences, at meetings, on stages? Who are the women that you see that you're thinking, hey, you know what? She got it going on. She's doing her stuff. Like she is really doing it. And maybe you even think, I want to be like her. You know, we all have those types of thoughts. And so when you're observant of that, I want you to begin to peel back the layers on it. Think about how you can show up differently because as women, especially women of color, we have been conforming for far too long. For far too long, we have been just trying to fit in. I I know we're wrapping this episode up, but I just have to say this. I was watching online, I want to say it was either TikTok or Instagram, just scrolling and watching silly stuff. But I don't know if you've seen a video like this, but it's where the person gets off work, especially, and it's usually going to be, a person of color, especially. I think I've seen a lot of Black women doing this, but they get off work and go and you get in your car and you go from being this, all dolled up, very conservative corporate woman. And then you kind of get in your car, turn on, your music, whatever it may be, hip hop, R&B, whatever you like to listen to, and let your hair down and you really get real. Like the whole personality changes, and we talk a lot about like things like code switching, et cetera, et cetera. But, the point is, the point is that we're so used to fitting in, to doing the things that we need to do in order to fit in with the masses. And what I want us to do as we move into the second half of the year is think about how we can stand out. So instead of fitting in, we're going to stand out. And there are a lot of people who are already doing that in our space, in industries that we see every day. And so just think about how you can embrace those things because the bolder you can be, the more profitable you will also become. I truly believe that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a little different today. I was just kind of reflecting on this and I thought, hey, you know what? This would be a good conversation for us today. And so if you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to share it with a friend. And then also leave your rating and your review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your 5-star rating will help the podcast grow and flourish and meet more people. Actually, we've been on an uptick in the last few months. And so I just want to keep that going, keep the energy, flowing. And I think that you sharing the episode and sharing your reviews and your feedback is a wonderful way to help us grow. And I would truly, truly appreciate it. But until next time, let's work on being more bold. I'm going to do it. I think, we can do it together. All right, guys, have a good one. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do just that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, keep breaking glass ceilings. All right, take care.